day. I'm going to kind of just waste a few seconds here because it doesn't seem to take up exactly when I come on. So give it about 30 seconds and we'll get started. All right, 25. Okay. Welcome. I missed last week. Rusty and I both came down with a horrible, you know what? Let me go grab some here to clean. Came down with a horrible cold. It's better. And I was not able to do last week's reading, so we missed Bo. We're going to just move on and start with week 16. And this is, I guess I'll introduce myself. My name is Lanita. I'm the Scrappy Grandma. And this is our weekly Bible study, Torah Portions, where we read out of the Bible. And the beautiful thing about the Torah Portions is there are people all over the world reading the exact same portion that we're reading. And how beautiful is that in honoring our King, in all of us being in one accord, in being in unity, reading about him and his nature and his character through his the Torah, which is just the first five books of the Bible. Everybody has a Torah in their house, and Torah means instructions. And this week is week 16. Next week will be the 1-year anniversary of reading as a group in our Torah Portions Women's Bible Study group. Everyone there started on week 17, so that's exciting. So week 16 is, and I'll probably butcher this, Beshalach, meaning when he sent. And it is Exodus 13:17 through 17:16. Judges 4:4 through 5:31 is the Haftorah. And what the Haftorah is while the Greeks ruled in Israel, they made it illegal for the Yahudim, the Jews, to read their Torah. And so what they did is they started reading out of the prophets and the books of wisdom, scriptures that would still teach the lessons they learned in Torah. So there was their workaround. That's the Haftorah. And now we also have the Brit Hadasha, which is the Gospels, the New Testament. And so the Haftorah is Judges 4:4 through 5:31. And then in the Gospels, we have Matthew 5:1 through 48, John 6:22 through 40, 1 Corinthians 10:1 through 13, 2 Corinthians 8:1 through 15, and Revelation 15:1 through 4. And so let's begin in prayer. Father Yah, I give this time to you for your honor and for your glory, and that you send it out and it's going to the people that you want to hear it. This is all about you, all about knowing you more, all about becoming more intimately involved in walking in covenant with you. Open our eyes and reveal your truths to us, my King. Teach us through your word. In your Son, Yahushua's mighty name. Amen. All right. So, Father, please give me the energy and the oxygen I need to get through this reading today. It's been a struggle. I have not had a lot of, it's respiratory, and so I don't have a lot of oxygen, and hopefully I won't be coughing too much. That's why I couldn't do it last week. There was just no way I could read for an hour. In fact, we'll see how far I can get today, because I'm already lightheaded from not getting enough oxygen. This cold is brutal, absolutely brutal. So, all right. So I'm going to start with our commentary out of A Year Through Torah, a week by week journey for Christians. It kind of just sets the stage of what we're going to be reading in the Bible. So it's last week's Torah portion, Bo, told how the Pharaoh refused to listen to Moses' plea for freedom, even after experiencing the greater power of, and I'm going to just, you're going to hear me using a different name. I was using Yahuwah, and it's YHWH are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, their alphabet. But and I'm still in prayer about exactly what the Father wants me to call him, how to he would like me to pronounce his name. I don't feel comfortable with Yahuwah as much anymore, and as more to Yahweh. It's a YHWH. There's no consonants, so Yahweh is the closest I can come to it. So that's Yahweh. So I'm probably going to bounce around because I'm new habits. So anyway, even after experiencing the power of Yahweh, as revealed in the multiple signs and wonders shown in Egypt, finally the plague of the death of the firstborn caused Pharaoh to relent, and Adonai instituted the Passover to commemorate the power of his deliverance by the blood of the Lamb. Parshat Beshalach begins, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was nearer, Exodus 13:17. After the Israelites left Egypt, the Lord did not lead them along the most direct route to the promised land through territory occupied by the Philistines, but rather towards the Sea of Reeds, perhaps a section of the Gulf of Aqaba. The Lord led the way for the Israelites with a column or pillar of cloud by day, with a column or pillar of fire by night, and led them back from Etham to camp by the sea, so that Pharaoh would be led to believe that the Israelites were lost in the wilderness. When Pharaoh learned of Israel's position, however, he hardened his heart yet again and led his army to force the Israelites to return to their life in bondage. After the Egyptians caught up to them, the Israelites were trapped against the sea, and the people were terrified that they were to be slaughtered. And the column of cloud moved to the rear, however, and created a veil of darkness that hindered any further Egyptian advance. He was their rear guard. And the Lord then commanded Moses to raise the staff over the Sea of Reeds. A strong east wind then blew and divided the waters, forming a wall of water on the right and left, and the Israelites crossed on dry seabed. The Egyptian cavalry attempted to follow them, but were thrown into confusion by the Lord, who caused their chariot wheels to become stuck in the wet sand. Moses then stretched out his hand over the sea, and the returning waters overwhelmed the Egyptians. Once the Israelites saw that their tormentors were destroyed, Moses and Miriam led the people in the Song of the Sea, a spontaneous hymn of praise and thanks to the Lord. Soon, however, the bitter reality of their journey in the wilderness eventually caused the people to complain to Moses. When the Israelites reached Marah, meaning bitterness, so named because of its bitter water, the people murmured against Moses, who was shown a tree, which then thrown into the waters made them sweet, suitable for drinking. The Lord declared that this was a test to ensure that the people understood him as Adonai, Rabokia, meaning the Lord your healer. The Israelites then entered the wilderness of sin. Soon their lack of food made them wish they had died in Egypt. However, the Lord declared that he would cause bread to rain from heaven and would test whether the people would obey his Torah in the evening. Excuse me. In the evening, quail came to the camp, providing the people with meat. In the morning, the ground was covered with bread from heaven, manna, meaning what? The Jews were commanded to, no, it wasn't the Jews. I accurately, the Hebrews, the Israelites, the sons of Jacob, were commanded to each gather no more than an omer, approximately 4 pints of manna per day. However, on the 6th day, they were told to gather a double portion so that they would have it on Shabbat, when work was prohibited. Some of the people disobeyed and went to gather the manna on the 7th day, but found none. Aaron preserved a small quantity of manna in a jar as a testimony for future generations. At Rephidim, the people again complained to Moses about the lack of water. At the Lord's commandment, Moses struck the rock on nearby Mount Horeb with his staff, causing streams of water to gush forth, and the people were quenched and satisfied. The place where this miracle occurred was called testing and quarreling. Note that 40 years later, in the region of Kadesh, Moses would strike the rock twice, Numbers 27 through 17, a sin that dishonored the true rock, the Mashiach, the Messiah, 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 5. And this act would cost him entry into the promised land. One of the most tragic things, I think, it just breaks my heart and shows us how serious it is that we listen and obey. The Israelites then encountered their first battle as a nation with Amalek. Please forgive me. A tribe that descended from Esau. While the war waged, Moses, accompanied by Aaron and Hur, went to the top of the hill holding his staff. When he raised his hands in prayer to YHWH, the Israelites prevailed. The battle lasted until sunset, when Amalek was decisively defeated. To commemorate the victory, Moses built an altar and called it, "The Lord is my banner." The Lord commanded Moses to record the incident and impress its occurrence upon Joshua, who would later lead the people into the promised land. Because of their treachery in attacking the Israelites, the tribe of Amalek, a type of carnal man or our lower beastly nature, was to be totally destroyed and its memory eradicated. So that is the commentary. I'm going to read as much as I can. If I'm not able to complete it, I just encourage you, and I'll read off the scriptures again. I encourage you to read it yourself. So, Exodus 13:17. And it came to be, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Elohim did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though it was nearer. For Elohim said, lest the people regret when they see fighting and return to Mitzrayim. So he didn't want them to instantly go into war with the nations, just to not discourage them and want them to turn back. So Elohim led the people around by the way of the wilderness of the Sea of Reeds, and the children of Israel went up in 5s from the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the bones of Yosef with him, for he certainly made the children of Yisrael swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring my bones from here with you. And they departed from Sukkot and camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh went before them by day in the column of cloud to lead the way, and by night a column of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. One of the things that I learned that I thought was really awesome is the cloud also covered them and kept them from their getting sunburn out in the desert. You know, it kept a nice cloud over them for their protection, which I thought was really cool. Anyway, and the column of the cloud did not cease by day, nor the column of fire by night, before the people. 14. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, that they turn and camp before Pi Hahiroth, between Migdal and the sea opposite Baal Tesphon. Camp before it by the sea. For Pharaoh should say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, the wilderness has closed them in. I have never noticed that before in all these years I've read the Bible. How interesting. And I shall strengthen the heart of Pharaoh, and he shall pursue them, but I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh and over all his enemies, all his army, And the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, shall know that I am Yahweh. Yahweh, 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 Yod, He, Vav, He, Yahweh. Yahweh is another Yahweh, Yahweh. There's either Yod, YHWH or YHWH, both of those. So Yahweh, Yahweh is his, is how I'm being led to pronounce his name. And it was reported to the sovereign of Mitzrayim that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? Excuse me. And he took 600 choice chariots and all the chariots of Mitzrayim with the officers over all of them. And Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, Egypt, and he pursued the children of Israel. But the children of Israel went out defiantly. And the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, pursued them, and all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them, camping by the sea beside Hahiroth, before Baal Tisphon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes and saw the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, coming up after them. And they were greatly afraid. So the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh. And they said to Moshe, did you take us away to die in the wilderness because there is no burial sites in Mitzrayim, in Egypt? What is this that you've done to us to bring us out of Mitzrayim? This is not the word that we spoke to you in Mitzrayim, saying, leave us alone and let us serve the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, for it would have been better for us to serve the Mitzrites than to die in the wilderness. And Moshe said to the people, do not be afraid, stand. And this is so appropriate for us when we are in a place of fear and uncertainty. Stand still and see the deliverance of Yahweh, which he does for you today. For the Mitzrites, the Egyptians whom you see today, are never to see again. Yahweh does fight for you, and you keep silent. Oh, how beautiful is that? And he does fight our battles for us if we only trust him and surrender to him. And Yahweh said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Speak to the children of Israel and let them go forward. And you lift up your rod and stretch your hand over the sea and divide it, and let the children of Israel go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I am strengthening the hearts of the Mitzrayim, and that they shall follow them. And I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh and over all of his army, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, shall know that I am Yahweh, when I am esteemed through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the messenger of Elohim, who went before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the column of cloud went from before them and stood behind them. It's so true. He is our front and rear guard. Now, I heard a teaching last week, and it's so beautiful that when we are walking in his ways, we are like in an umbrella of protection. And that protection's only lifted from us when we go against his ways. So there's a peace in knowing that we're in his protection, and it's like he's been proving this over and over and over again to Rusty and I. And just that he really does care for us and take care of us when we're walking in his ways. And I call it walking in favor. And people are like, well, you say you're walking in favor, but you've been sick for a week. Yeah, I have a human body that has its frailties. And for whatever purpose, YHWH, the Father, felt that, our grandkids got it, or our daughter got it, her and her husband both, and they were having a hard time. They were struggling taking care of their 4 children, from 6 months up to 9 years old. And so I took the 2 middles, Eliza, who's 4, and Obi, who's 2, because they take the most work. They're a lot of work. And so we took them so that my daughter could heal and get better quicker so she could take care of her kids. And they ended up getting fevers here, and then we ended up coming down with it, which we knew was a risk, but was worth the risk in taking care of our grandbabies. And everybody's catching it. It's going around. But just because we catch a cold doesn't mean we're not still walking in favor. There's just something there's a peace and a security and just a knowing when you're walking in his ways and walking in favor. It's just mind-blowing. So anyway, he became their rear guard, and I lost my place, and I'm so sorry. Oh, darn it. Okay. Darn it. Sorry. There it is. And the cloud stood behind them and came between the camp of the Mitzrayites, the Egyptians, and the camp of Israel. And it was the cloud and the darkness, and it gave light by night, and the one did not come near the other all the night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and YHWH caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right and on their left. I just always have tried to picture this and imagine this. It's just, wow. And the Mitzrayites pursued and went after them into the midst of the sea, all the horses of Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to be in the morning watch that YHWH looked down upon the armies of the Mitzrayites, the Egyptians, through the column of fire and cloud, and he brought the army of the Mitzrayites into confusion. And he took off their chariot wheels so that they drove them with difficulty. And the Mitzrayites said, "Let us flee from the face of Israel, for YHWH fights for them against the Mitzrayites." Then YHWH said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand over the sea and let the waters come back upon the Mitzrayites, on their chariots and on their horsemen." And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its usual flow at the break of day, with the Mitzrayites fleeing into it. Thus YHWH overthrew the Mitzrayites in the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them, and not even one was left of them. Just think about the devastation. So they have all the plagues, all their firstborn die. Then their mighty men, their chariots, they go to try to recapture, and then they're all wiped out. I mean, this was just tragedy after tragedy for Egypt. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them, and not even one was left of them. And the children of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them on their right and on their left. Thus YHWH saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Mitzrayites, and Israel saw that Mitzrayites dead on the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which YHWH had done in Mitzrayim, and the people feared YHWH and believed YHWH and his servant Moshe. 15. Then Moshe and the children of Israel sang this song to YHWH and spoke, saying, I sing to YHWH, for he is highly exalted. The horse and the rider he has thrown into the sea. Yah is my strength and my song. He has become my deliverance. He is my El, and I praise him, Elohim of my father, and I exalt him. YHWH is a man of battle. YHWH is his name. And he cast Pharaoh's chariots and his army into the sea, and his chosen officers are drowned in the sea of reeds. The depths covered them, and they went down to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, O YHWH, has become great in power. Your right hand, O YHWH, has crushed the enemy. And in the greatness of your excellence, you pulled down those who rose up against you, and you set forth your wrath and consumed them like stubble. And with the wind of your nostrils, the waters were heaped up, and the flood stood like a wall, and the depths became stiff in the heart of the sea. And the enemy said, I pursue, I overtake, I divide the spoil. My being is satisfied on them. I draw out my sword, and my hand destroys them. You did blow with your wind. The sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O YHWH, among the mighty ones? Who is like you, great and set apartness, which a lot of translations is holiness. Awesome in praises, working wonders. You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your loving commitment, you led the people whom you have redeemed. In your strength, you guided them to your set-apart dwelling. Peoples heard, they trembled, anguish gripped in the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom were troubled, and the mighty men of Moab trembling gripped them. All the inhabitants of Canaan melted. Fear and dread fell on them by the greatness of your arm. They are silent as a stone until your people pass over. O YHWH, until the people whom you have brought pass over. And that's what Hebrew means, is crossed over. We're all Hebrews in that if we have accepted Yahusha, the Mashiach, the Messiah, Jesus, if we've not accepted him, because that's such, it never really says to accept him. It says to follow him and do what he does. And those who have crossed over from a life of sin and death and have crossed over through Jesus, through the Messiah, are Hebrews. We are grafted in. We're from the wild branch, the Gentiles, and we're grafted into the nation of Israel. Like Jesus was a Hebrew, crossed over one. Fear and dread fell on them by greatness, and your arm, they are silent as a stone until your people pass over. O YHWH, until the people whom you have brought pass over. You bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O YHWH, which you have made for your own dwelling, a set-apart place, O YHWH, which your hands have prepared. YHWH reigns forever and ever. For the horses of Pharaoh went with his chariots and his horsemen into the sea, and YHWH brought back the waters of the sea upon them, and the children of Israel went on dry ground in the midst of the sea. And Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the timbrel in her hand, and all of the women went out after her with timbrel and with dances. It's one of my favorite. I have always, I don't know how many years it's gone back, being a worshiper and dancing in worship and dancing with tambourines and flags. And Miriam answered them, sing to YHWH, for he is highly exalted. The horse and the rider he has thrown into the sea. And Moshe brought Israel from the sea of reeds, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. And they came to Marah, and they were unable to drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. So the name of it was called Marah. And the people grumbled against Moshe, saying, "What are we to drink?" Then he cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a tree. And when he threw it into the waters, the water were made sweet. There he made a law and a right ruling for them, and there he tried them. And he said, "If you diligently obey the voice of Yahweh, your Elohim, and do what is right in his eyes, and shall listen to his commands, and shall guard all of his laws." This is for us today. We are to diligently obey the voice of Yahweh, our Elohim, and do what is right in his eyes, and shall listen to his commands, and shall guard all of his laws. His promise then is, "I shall bring on you none of the diseases I brought on the Mitzrayites, for I am Yahweh who heals you." Thank you, Father. Water, 7 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. And I just always picture, the dry desert, and then there's this oasis with these palm trees and this living water, running water. 16, and they set out from Elam, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second new moon, after their going out of the land of Mitzrayim. And all of the congregation of the children of Israel grumbled against Moshe and against Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, "If only we had died by the hands of Yahweh in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the pots of meat and when we ate bread to satisfaction." So once again, sin, there's so many times in the word where sin, our bellies and our tongues cause us to sin. Adam and Eve with eating of the fruit from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. And here they're murmuring because they're wanting the delicacies that they had as slaves in Egypt. The pots of meat, and when we ate bread to satisfaction, for you have brought us out into the wilderness to put all of the assembly to death with hunger. They were probably doing some fasting, and instead of fasting and cleaving and cleaving unto him, they're murmuring against him. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "See, I am raining bread from the heavens for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day." Our daily bread. Oh my gosh. Our daily portion was what we're supposed to be doing every day in the living word, the Torah, our daily bread. In order to try them, whether they walk in my Torah, in my instructions or not. That's what Torah means, instructions. "And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily." And that's kind of what we do on Fridays. Preparation day is we prepare double portion so that we don't have to cook on the weekends. When we do or on Sabbath, when I do a really good job of preparation on preparation day, that happens. Other times it doesn't. But I work at it and I try. And in the morning, let's see. "And Moshe and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, at evening you shall know that Yahweh has brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And in the morning you shall see the esteem of Yahweh. For he hears your grumbling against Yahweh. And what are we that you grumble against us?" And Moshe said, "In that Yahweh gives you meat to eat in the evening, and in the morning bread to satisfaction. For Yahweh hears your grumblings, which you have made against him. And what are we? Your grumblings are not against us, but against Yahweh." And that is something so huge here. If you're someone who has a habit of grumbling, I would encourage you to really pray that the Father set a watch on your lips. And instead of being someone who is a grumbler, become someone who is a praiser. And, it's all choice. We can choose to grumble or we can choose to praise. And grumbling leads to death. Grumbling leads to a dissatisfaction. It's showing the condition of our heart that we're dissatisfied with with what the Almighty has given us. Like this cold, I could grumble about having this cold, but I'm just so thankful. I'm so thankful for all that He does for us every day. And I'm thankful that, it only lasted a week, and that we're getting our strength back, and that we're getting, back into being able to do our daily tasks. So I would really encourage not to be a grumbler, and to take those thoughts captive, and remind yourself that everything that happens is by His hand, and that we need to praise Him for what He has ordained every day of your life. And Moshe said to Aaron, "Say to all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before YHWH, for He has heard your grumblings." And it came to be, as Aaron spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked towards the wilderness, and see, the esteem of YHWH appeared in a cloud. And YHWH spoke to Moshe, saying, "I have heard the grumblings of the children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, between the evenings you are to eat meat, and in the mornings you are to be satisfied with bread. And you shall know that I am YHWH, your Elohim." And it came to be that quail came at evening and covered the camp. In the morning the dew lay all around the camp, and the layers of dew went up, and see, on the surface of the wilderness was a small round substance, as fine as frost, on the ground. And the children of Israel saw, and they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moshe said to them, "It is the bread which YHWH has given you to eat." How beautiful is that? "This is the word which YHWH has commanded. Let every man gather it according to each one's need, an omer for each being, according to the number of beings. Let each man take for those who are in his tent." And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more, some less. And they measured it by omers. And he who gathered much did not have too much, and he who gathered little did not have too little. Each one gathered according to his need. And Moshe said, "Let no one leave any of it until morning." And they did not listen to Moshe. So some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms, and it stank. And Moshe was wroth with them. And they gathered it every morning, each one according to his need. And when the sun became hot, it melted. And it came to be on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each one. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moshe. And he said to them, "This is what YHWH said. Tomorrow is a rest, a Sabbath, set apart to YHWH. That which you bake, bake. That which you cook, cook. And lay up for yourself all that is left over to keep until morning." And they laid it up until morning, and was as Moshe commanded, and it did not stink, and no worms was in it. And Moshe said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath today is a Sabbath to YHWH, not a Sabbath of the Jews, not a Sabbath of Israel, a Sabbath to YHWH. Today you do not find it in the field. Gather it 6 days, but on the 7th day, on which the Sabbath, there is none." And it came to be that some of the people went out on the 7th day to gather, but they found none. They're so stiff-necked and hard-hearted and just stubborn, willful. And when YHWH said to Moshe, "How long shall you refuse to guard my commands, my Torot?" Torot is a plural of Torah, meaning teachings. "How long will you refuse to guard my commands and my instructions?" And boy, we are all so guilty. "See, because YHWH has given you the Sabbath, therefore he is giving you bread for 2 days. On the 6th day, let each one stay in his place, and do not let anyone go out of his place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day, and the house of Israel called its name manna. And it was like white coriander seed, and the taste of it was like thin cakes made with honey. And Moshe said, "This is the word which YHWH has commanded. Fill an omer with it, and keep it for your generations, so that they see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim." I wonder when the Ark of the Covenant is found, because I think it was Jeremiah who hid it. I wonder when it comes out and is found, which I expect to happen anytime. I wonder if it'll still have Aaron's staff that is budded and have manna in a jar in it, and the tablets. I wonder if those will all still be in there. Exciting to see. And Moshe said, "This is the word which Yahweh has commanded. Fill an omer with it and keep it for your generations, so that you see that the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt." And Moshe said to Aaron, "Take a pot and put an omer of manna in it and set it down before Yahweh to keep for your generations. As Yahweh commanded Moshe, so did Aaron set it down before the witness to keep." And the children... Okay, so the ark doesn't exist yet. It hasn't been built. So right now they just have the jar with the manna in it. And the children of Israel ate manna 40 years. The Father provided this for them until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan. And an omer is 1/10 of an ephah. 17. And all the congregations of the children of Israel set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin, according to the mouth of Yahweh, and camped at Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. And therefore the people strove with Moshe and said, "Give us water to drink." And Moshe said to them, "Why do you strive with me? Why do you try Yahweh?" And the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moshe and said, "Why did you bring us out of Mitzrayim to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" Still, they don't see. And Moshe cried out to Yahweh, saying, "What am I to do with this people? Yet a little, and they shall stone me." And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Pass over before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in the hand your rod with which you struck the river, and go. See, I'm standing before you there on the rock of Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and the water shall come out of it, and the people shall drink." And Moshe did so before the eyes of the elders of Israel. And he called on the name of the place Massa and Meribah, because of the strife of the children of Israel, and because they tried Yahweh, saying, "Is Yahweh in our midst or not?" They see the pillars of smoke and fire, and they have the manna every morning. And is he in our midst or not? It's just like, but how often do we get in a situation where we let fear reign and rule over us, and we forget that he's with us and that he ordains all that happens to us, and that we start murmuring and complaining and grumbling. And Amalek. Now, Amalek, we are going to hear a lot about Amalek. And Amalek is not only a king of a tribe at this point, but Amalek is also a nature, our human nature, our lower beastly nature. And so a lot of times, you'll hear about the spirit of Amalek. And he is a usurper and he preys on the weak, and he's a form of Satan. And Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. And Moshe said to Joshua, "Choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I am stationing myself on the top of the hill with the rod of Elohim in my hand." And Yehoshua did as Moshe said to him, to fight with Amalek. And Moshe, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Hur is Miriam's husband. And it came to be when Moshe held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moshe's hands were heavy, so they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other side, and his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Yehoshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "Write this for a remembrance in the book, and recite it in the hearing of Yehoshua, that I shall completely blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heavens." And Moshe built a slaughter place and called the name of it Nisi, Yahweh Nisi. For he said, "Because a hand is on the throne of Yah, YHWH is to fight against Amalek from generation to generation. And that is the end of the Torah portion. Are we at 45 minutes? Okay. I have about 15 minutes. So the Haftorah, now like I said, the Haftorah is basically when they were being ruled by Greece, they were not allowed to read the Torah. And they weren't allowed to read the Torah. They were not allowed to, I think, observe the Sabbath. They were not allowed to circumcise their boys. And something else, yeah. And I were they forced to eat pork? I can't remember that part. But so since they weren't able to read the Torah, they found portions out of the prophets and the books of wisdom that they could learn the same lessons at the same time, like the portion that we read. And so this is the portion that they would read to then remind them and teach them of the Torah, of the instructions. So it is Judges 4:4. It begins. And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lipidoth, was ruling Israel at the time. Isn't that interesting? A woman ruling Israel. She was a prophetess. And she was dwelling under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the mountains of Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for right ruling. And she sent and called for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, has not YHWH Elohim of Israel commanded, go, and you shall draw towards Mount Tabor, and shall take with you 10,000 men of the sons of Naphtali and the sons of Zebulun? And I shall draw unto you Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his company of at the Wadi Gishom, and shall give him into your hand. And Barak said to her, if you go with me, then I shall go. But if you do not go with me, I do not go. And she said, I shall certainly go with you. Only there shall be no esteem for you in the journey you are taking, for YHWH is going to sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. So basically it's like, you're not going to get any honor for this. I, as a woman, am going to get an honor for this because I'm going. So Deborah rose and went with Barak to Kadesh. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh, and he went up 10,000 men under his command, and Deborah went up with him. And Heber, the Canaanite, of the children of Horab, and the father-in-law of Moshe, had separated himself from the Kenites and pitched his tent near the terebinth tree at Sanam, I can't pronounce that one, which is besides Kadesh. And they reported to Sisera that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up to the Mount Tabor. So Sisera called all of his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the people who were with him from Haroseth, Haggioim, and the Wadi Yashon. And Deborah said to Barak, rise up, for this is the day in which YHWH has given Sisera into your hand. Has not YHWH gone out before you? And Barak went down from Mount Tabor and with 10,000 men after him. And YHWH destroyed Sisera and all of his chariots and all of his army with the edge of the sword from Barak. And Sisera leaped from his chariot and fled away on foot. But Barak pursued the chariot and the army as far as Haroseth Hagoyim. Turn aside to me, do not fear. So he turned aside to him into the tent, and she covered him with a blanket. And he said to her, please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. So she opened a bottle of milk and gave him a drink and covered him. And he said to her, stand at the door of the tent, and it shall be, if anyone comes and asks you and says, is there a man here? You shall say no. But yell, Haber's wife, what a woman. Oh, maybe that's what Deborah meant, is that the woman will get esteem for it. And Yael, Haber's wife, took a tent peg and took a hammer in her hand and went softly to him and drove the peg into the side of his head, and it went down to the ground, for he was fast asleep and exhausted, and he died. And see, as Barak pursued Sisera, Yael came out to meet him and said to him, "Come, let me show you the man whom you are seeking." And when they went into the tent, there lay Sisera dead with a tent peg in the side of his head. And on that day, Elohim humbled Jabin, sovereign of Canaan, in the presence of the children of Israel. And the hand of the children of Israel grew stronger and stronger against Jabin, sovereign of Canaan, until they had cut off Jabin, sovereign of Canaan. And on that day, Deborah and Barak, son of Abinoam, saying, for the leaders leading in Israel, for the people volunteering, bless Yahweh. Hear, O sovereign, give ear, O princes. I do sing to Yahweh. I sing praises to Yahweh, Elohim of Israel. Yahweh, when you went out from Sur, when you stepped from the field of Edom, the earth shook and the heavens poured. The clouds also poured water. The mountains flowed at the presence of Yahweh. This Sinai at the presence of Yahweh, Elohim of Israel. In the days of the Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Yaalel, the highways were deserted and the travelers went in crooked ways. Leadership ceased. It ceased in Israel until I, Deborah, arose. A mother in Israel arose. They chose new mighty ones, then fighting within the gates. Neither a shield nor a spear was seen among 40,000 in Israel. My heart is towards the inscribers in Israel, the volunteers among the people. Bless Yahweh. You who ride on white donkeys, you who sit on rich carpets, and you who walk along the way, declare it. By the voice of shouters between the places of drawing water, there they recount the righteous acts of Yahweh, the righteous acts of his leadership in Israel. Then the people of Yahweh go down to the gates. Wake up, Deborah, wake up, sing a song. Arise, Barak, and lead your captives away, O son of Abinoam. Then he sat the remnant to rule the nobles. Yahweh came down for me against the mighty ones. Out of Ephraim, the root is against Amalek. There's Amalek. After you, Benaim, with your people out of Mikar, inscribers came down out of Zebulun, those who handled the scribes' reed. And the heads of Issachar were with Deborah, and as Issachar, so was Barak, sent into the valley under his command among the divisions of Reuben. There were great searchings of heart. Why did you remain among the sheepfold to hear the bleatings of the flocks? The divisions of Reuben have great searchings of heart. Gilead remained beyond the Jordan. And why did Dan sojourn by the ships? Asher counted at the seashore and remained by its landing places. Zebulun is a people who risked their lives to the point of death. Naphtali also on the heights of the field. Sovereigns came. They fought. Then the sovereigns of Canaan fought in Temanach by the waters of Megiddo. They took no spoils of silver. From the heavens they fought. The stars from their courses fought against Sisera. The Wadi of Kishon swept them away. That age-old Wadi, the Wadi of Kishon, O my being, you have trampled in strength. Then stamped hooves of horses with the galloping of steeds. Curse Meroz, said the messenger of Yahweh. Curse its inhabitants, because they did not come to help of Yahweh, to the help of Yahweh among the mighty. Blessed among women is Yael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Above women in tents, she is blessed. She goes down into infamy for what she had done. He asked for water. She gave milk. She brought out curdled milk in a bowl for nobles. She stretched out her hand to the tent peg, her right hand to the workman's hammer. Then she pounded Sisera. She smashed his head. She pierced and struck through the side of his head. Between her feet she bowed. He fell and lay still. Between her feet she bowed. He fell. Where he bowed, there he fell, destroyed. Through the window, the mother of Sisera looked and cried out through the lattice, "Why does his chariot delay to come? Why have the steps of his chariots tarried?" The wise one of her princesses answered her. Indeed, she answered herself. Do they not find and divide the spoil, a girl or two for each man, a spoil of dyed work for Sisera, a spoil of dyed work, embroidered, dyed work, richly embroidered for the necks of the looter? So do all your enemies perish, O YHWH, but let those who love him be like the sun rising in its might, and the land had rest 40 years. Wow. See how that tied to where they could read that and then remember their escape from Egypt and Yahweh's hand of deliverance. That's just so beautiful. I'm not going to have an opportunity to read the Gospels, so I encourage you to do that on your own. Matthew 5, 1 through 48, John 6, 22 through 40, 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 13, 2 Corinthians 8, 1 through 15, and Revelation 15, 1 through 4. And I encourage you, if you have any questions or comments or concerns about anything that I've read today, please leave them in the comments. I thank you for joining me as I read through the Torah. It's a blessing to be able to read it, and I pray that it's a blessing to be able to hear it read to you. And I encourage you to read it along with me. Father Yah, thank you so much for helping my voice and helping me to get through this, giving me enough oxygen to make it through. Bless everyone who hears this, Father. Cause them to walk in favor. Cause them to surrender their lives and walk with you in obedience to your Torah, to your instructions, to your word. To you be all the glory and honor, my King. In your Son, Yahushua's mighty name. Amen. Be blessed and glorify the Lord. See you next Monday, Yah willing. Bye.